Dear class and dear professor, today we're going to talk about a hot issue, which is minimum wages, and which has been discussed many times, but it has many mixed opinions because it depends so much on the perspective, the way you look at it. That puts economists and researchers trying to do objective work a tricky position. How well this minimum wage have worked, we're going to discuss. So we're going to discuss yes or no on this statement. Are minimum wages important or not? Here in Real Talk, we talk only about the hottest topics, and I'm Dan Krasnic, and I will be your moderator for today. We have four superbly qualified debaters here. We're going to start with Anula Pula, an economist, analyst. And then we have Vanessa Ghosh, Minister of Labor, Economics and Social Welfare. Art Raife, Professor of Microeconomics in Harvard. And lastly, Katrina Zeka is President of Kosovo Business Chamber. How the debate is going to do is the first round, each debater will have 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to talk about their opening statements, so their opinions and a brief overview of the supporting evidence. In the second round, they're going to rebuttal each other, then question each other, and lastly, the audience can question the debaters and make their points. To start, and in the end, there's going to be one winner which you will choose. We can start with Mr. Raife and his opening statement.
Hello everyone. My job for today is to actually convince you guys that the minimum wage is a bad deal. It does not help the economy, and it actually, in fact, it bears a harmful effect to this overall society. My statement is going to look at two sides, the economic perspective with a slight touch on the moral judgment. So let's talk economics first. The first thing, let's make this not the assumption, but we all are future and potential. We are professional economists, but you are future economists. So you're familiar with the terms, and I feel that I have the liberty to throw out some economic terms. So let's talk economics. The first thing we learn in economics is the notion of labor. The notion of law of demand. The law of demand tells us one thing. As the price of one good increases, its demand will decrease. So, what is this good we're talking about in this debate? This is labor, and to be more specific, it is low-skilled labor. By low-skilled labor, what we mean is the people who are actually having less education, less experience, and less skill who have actually less skill, and those are the ones who are actually harmed. Minimum wages try to protect those people, but what they do, in fact, they cause more trouble for them than they do. I brought this slide to illustrate the law of demand. So the people that I said get hurt most are those who are the least productive. Why are they the least productive? They have less education. But other people that are actually more productive, they are not the ones being harmed by the minimum wage because they are already earning more than the minimum wage. Whereas there are some people who are actually facing a raise because they are, for some reason, located with a wage that is in between the line. But the ones that are harmed are the low-skilled people. Once you make the labor of these people more expensive, you're actually going to make the costs of the employers higher. What's the most rational thing employers are going to do? They're going to fire these low-skilled people. Now the next thing low-skilled fired people, unemployed individuals, are going to try and look for a job. But what's going to happen is that every place they go, because the minimum wage is present in every single industry, they're not going to be able to find a job because employers do not deem them worthy for the job. Their productivity is lower than their cost now because of the minimum wage. And even if they want to join the wage, if they want to go for that job with even a lower wage, they will be refused again because the law does not allow for the employers to hire anyone below that minimum wage, which in this case, in this example, is $8. So what happens? Essentially, you're destroying the economic ladder for these people. You're not giving them the opportunity. You're destroying their opportunity to actually find a job, gain experience, and then in the future increase productivity and even find a better job. Now here's where the moral judgment kicks in.
Please, can you wrap it up faster?
The last thing, the moral judgment kicks in here because it is not about the money. It's about helping these people. It is about these people finding an opportunity, finding a job, and getting a job that gets them the experience necessary for better productivity in the future and a better job. That's all.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Buda, can you show us your opening position?
Yes, first of all, I want to tell that minimum wage is the lowest payment paid or permitted to be paid. Differently, minimum wage is named as the cost of labor. Wage fixed by legal authorities or by contract as the least that may be paid either employed person or a particular category of employment persons. Why do you think that minimum wages are important? First of all, they will create jobs and boost the economy. To get the economy back on track, spending power has to be in the hands of those who actually spend in the real economy. This means regular people, not the super wealthy who tend to hoard wealth or invest in financial products. The second one is that minimum wages are good for the families. The minimum wage would increase the incomes of 28 million of Americans. We're talking for America. Women would particularly benefit because they tend to work for lower wages than men. With more family income, some people would choose to retire or go back to school or have children, making it easier for others who need jobs to find them. Another point that we want to show you is that the main reason why people want the minimum wages is that more and more people are depending on minimum wages jobs as the main source of income. So people either need to be hired to more higher paying jobs, or the government needs to find a way increasing the minimum wage but still keeps business successful.
Thank you very much. And now the opening statement from Ms. Zink.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm against minimum wages, as I mentioned, and he mentioned some of the reasons in the employee side. However, I will concentrate in the employer side, and I will tell how this will affect businesses, not just employees, and also the overall economy in the macro perspective. First of all, what Anita said, most of that is false and doesn't have a ground, and that's why we are against minimum wages. Basically, we should see what kind of sector in the economy is impacted more from minimum wages, and that is small businesses. It's not big businesses have already profits, and they have something that small businesses don't have, which is economies of scale. So they are more productive and more efficient in producing something with lower cost. This minimum wage won't affect as much big businesses, and as it will affect small businesses because they are dependent from profit. So increasing the cost, which is a small share of their cost comes from the labor cost, and decreasing the labor cost, it will make them very hard to actually gain profit and compete with big businesses in the market. So they will try to do different adjustments in order to survive in the market. And that is either by decreasing the quantity of hiring people, or increasing the prices of their products. So in case that there's a competition, which in most cases is because they are small companies, then increasing the prices will affect in their profit because they will have lower demand from the consumers. That's why in most cases this goes into the decreasing of the quantity of employees. Other than this, adjustments is not just from the small companies, but also from the big companies. Businesses try to do different adjustments just to have more profit. And we can see that increasing minimum wages, they will try to decrease other benefits and other things, or maybe not give fringe benefits trainings, so they will keep their profits high. In the other side, this will affect also the economy, and the minimum wages might not have the effect that Anulia was mentioning of increasing the incomes of the families, because when you increase the minimum wages, then for those workers that are in the minimum wage, they will have increasing income, so they will have higher income, but also the prices in the market will increase because they have a higher income, and because, as I mentioned, companies will try to increase the prices to gain more profits. So by increasing the prices, then they cannot buy, so their real wages won't increase, so they will buy the same things, but just in nominal terms they will get a higher wage. Maybe the taxes will increase also.
Can I talk something?
No. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I will then explain it more and further, but I was also I wanted also to mention the morality part that Art was mentioning in the employees side. This is also for employers. It's very hard to determine that is this right to determine the rights of private companies, because they are private companies and you don't have the rights to interfere in their policies, because it's the CEOs of the companies that do that, and they think in the benefit of themselves and also their workers. So it's a question of morale also in the side of the businesses when we talk about minimum wages.
Thank you very much. And lastly, we have Ms. Gaucher, who's gonna have her opening statement.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank God that we have laws and we can implement them, and laws are there to provide certain frameworks what we should and shouldn't do. The law on minimum wage was, in this case, was intended to provide an amount of money that would be enough to for an affordable living. And what we mean to afford a living wage is we mean an amount of money to have food, shelter, and clothing. We have witnessed many times that there is a huge gap there's a huge gap in gender inequalities, and also in terms of age, because women and teenagers are more likely or more prone to unfair treatment or inequalities in the labor force. So the law of the minimum wage, or the overall minimum wage, is like a safety ground for those workers who don't want to be treated unfairly, and the employees cannot take advantage of the worker. And in this case, we're talking about low-skilled workers, and because people are aware of their own skills, they know that they cannot earn a higher amount of money. So this also gives an incentive for people when they have to make a comparison of for example, of the social assistance and the minimum wage. They see that which one would benefit them more, because human nature is such that we are rational and we choose the one that benefits us most. So if the minimum wage is more convenient or more beneficial for the potential employee, then he or she will choose whether to enter in the labor force or not. Instead of making assumptions and throwing opinions, the National Employment Law Project has conducted a research from the time that the law on minimum wage was enacted first in the U.S. and the data has shown, and they have suggested that from the time that the law on minimum wage was enacted, the employment and the employment has increased for 68%, and this suggests that the minimum wage has provided incentives for people and also has appeared to encourage job growth and hiring more.
Thank you very much. Now we're gonna start with the second round of the debate with the rebuttals. We have some questions from each side, so let's start with Ms.
I
Uga,
want,
since she was the first one to.
I want to say something to Katrina. You're saying that basic minimum wage will affect the cost of living to increase. Okay. First of all, the thing is that there are millions of people who are not high school graduates, college students, or part-time workers who are in the minimum wage. That doesn't give them enough support to them. The thing is that the price of housing goes up, but also the wages stays the same. What do you say with this? You said that if we raise the minimum wage, then the cost will go up.
No, if you're saying if the wages stay the same, but
Yes.
the wages aren't staying the same, but they are increasing. If the wages increase and also the housing prices increase and also other living costs increase, then the real wages aren't increasing. Only the nominal terms are increasing. So that makes the cost of living higher, and those money that you're earning from the minimum wage, you're spending now to face those costs of living, also to pay taxes and to do other things, or maybe to cover benefits that you have already had in the previous job. Because now, if the wages are higher, then workers employers won't give you benefits, but they will include that in the wage. Because in that case, there will be more profit. Also, as we're saying, a huge number of the minimum wage people that are gaining from this are high-skilled workers. The low-skilled workers are actually getting damaged from the minimum wages. And you're repeating that the income is increasing, and this is for poverty reasons. But since the low-income people are staying out from the minimum wage, then their income will be zero because they are not working at all, because it is illegal now to work for a work that pays lower than the minimum wage. And this brings to another issue, that is underground economy. Since you cannot work for that particular wage, it's harder to get the job because the standard is now increased, the wage is increased, and employers will ask more from you. Since you cannot enter the job, you will try to do other things just in order to survive, because you will have now zero income for the year. So you will go in the underground economy and you will do other bad
If
things.
we talk for Kosovo, if you go into a bank with a minimum wage job and you see that they won't give you a loan. We see that we have a case of in West Europe and Scandinavian countries when the minimum wage are higher than in US. This forces companies to replace employers with simplistic jobs with machines. And in return, there are more people that go to school. In Western Europe and Scandinavian countries, you will see that more likely you see someone from a poor family can become healthy.
How can someone become healthy if he's poor? He's
More
fired,
like
he's
you
fired from
can
wait.
see them.
He's fired from a job. He has no source of income. How is that person going to get a loan from the bank? What bank is going to give that person a loan? How is he going to finance his
Because
education?
You are saying that minimum wage doesn't matter.
No, they do matter. They fire you from the job.
They
Once
do
they
matter,
fire you
but
from the
you
job,
don't want
you can't progress.
to increase them.
We don't want to have them.
Have them. We
Okay,
don't want to have them.
You just want to increase
That's a
them.
matter of the free market. You don't need the minimum wages because
Of
that's.
course, you need them. Then
Okay,
okay,
I have a
question.
question. You mentioned, just a second, you mentioned the example of Kosovo, but that's exactly where the minimum wages don't function, because we already have 35% of unemployment. Now, if you increase the minimum wages, what do you expect to happen? More employment? We actually have small businesses, we don't have big businesses, but that will
No
benefit
business
from
will
the-
depend
The
on
rate of
the
unemployment is not
It
because
will
of the
depend
minimum
because
wage.
their profits will be affected
No
by the
payment will
minimum
depend
wage.
on the existing on paying less than living wages to its workers that has any right to continue in this country.
You're trying, minimum wages try to protect the people who earn the lowest. You are trying to put
But
a
the
base for that,
lowest
right?
now
Is that
won't
right?
have
Are you
any
forgetting
income.
that there are
People who are not,
The
you're trying
country
to,
is like in the health. You see high school students, you see like professors or ministers that don't depend actually in the minimum wage.
But
Actually,
wait,
if
you're saying that students will depend from the minimum wage. First of all, if you implement the minimum wage, then there will be less students hired in the work, in the jobs. Because students don't have, first of all, a degree, and employers will seek more efficient employees for that job. In the case when you don't have minimum wages, students will be willing to work for very low prices because they're
What
also
would
studying
be
and
the difference
working.
between a low price and a minimum wage?
But the
Just
low
because it
price,
doesn't have the term minimum wage attached to it.
no, it's not. The
This
same.
is what
You're saying that the minimum,
Okay,
we should implement the minimum wage so the lower prices to become higher than they are.
Okay, I have a question for you. You can answer any of you. Let's suppose that one of you you own a business and you want to employ someone. And how would you estimate the wage of that the wage that
That's the thing.
how
You
would you decide on the productivity, or how would you decide that okay, Dan deserves 500 euros and Anila
This is
deserves
decided
one-
by the market. If you have competition, then the market will set the wages. Because if you give
It's not necessarily the case.
yes, necessarily, because if you give an employee a wage
you
that
think
is
that the
over,
market decides
No,
right
no.
because of what?
I'm not saying that it decides right, but if it is a competition, then the market will decide for wages, which
How
is the
can
right
it be a
price.
competition with someone who had the opportunity to study in the UK and someone who is
I'm
selling
saying competition
Quora
in
in
businesses. And that is because if you set a lower price, which an employee thinks that he doesn't deserve that but more, then he will seek another.
yes,
you will go up to the
business,
competitor
No, the fact here is
Yes,
that
the
if
market
you have a
revenue has a
minimum, if
wage.
you have a minimum wage, it means that you cannot go below that minimum wage. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't deserve to have 500 a wage of 500 euros. You just can go below because
the
for
market
example,
decides-
if you don't have a minimum wage, then the probability of being the probability of employee exploitation would be higher.
Here's the thing,
And
low
based
income
on-
people,
just
low
a
income
second,
people.
because I didn't interrupt you when you was talking.
Sorry.
I've researched and there's an economic policy institute that found that made a research about the teenage workers, and what I mean by the teenage being eligible from 16 years old. And can you please show the graph? And so this institute have found out that the black lines are when the most changes happened in the market in terms of the employment of teenagers. And the institute have found out that the unemployment of teenagers was a result not of the minimum wage, but actually of a result of like broader economic trends like recession or inflation rather than the minimum wage. But
What country
actually,
is this from? What country is this from?
in the US.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Uh,
of course,
and,
in case that you have recessions, of course there will be unemployment because some businesses are going out
Okay,
of
I'm
the market and also, but you cannot
I'm
relate
trying to
these
make a
things to.
point. In 90s and also in 91, there was the minimum wage had to increase in order to get fixed to the inflation. So there was deterioration of the labor market of teenagers, and many teenagers were fired. But what happened as you can see, in 1995, 97, and also in 2005, 7, and 9, is that there was no the employment of teenagers increased during the weak labor market, and the share of actually in 2007 and 9, yes, the labor market was weaker and the share of the employed teenagers were low. So this this suggests that it's not because of the minimum wage, but rather because of the recession or inflation, as according to this research by the institute.
Okay, can I come now?
Okay.
Let me make 2 points. The first one is actually a question. If it were to be true, if unemployment would not happen because of minimum wage, in the US, let's take a specific state, Seattle, in 2015, they made a minimum wage of $15. You know what happened to employment? Minus 11,037 jobs. You know what? This was even worse than the recession of 2000 and 2007 and 2008, which Seattle faced. The impact the minimum wage faced, the impact of the minimum wage in 2015 was higher than the recession in 2007 and 2008. You know why? Because now you're not just with a minimum wage of $15, you're not just firing low productivity workers, you're even firing those workers that have a marginal productivity up to $15. They don't want to pay you anything above your productivity. They're going to fire you.
Yes, but in the U.S.,
Before you
before the law on minimum wage was enacted, the low-skilled workers were tended to be employed in the sweatshops, and they worked for 14 hours a day, and they were paid for $1. So I don't know. How
Okay,
would you
$1 versus
explain this?
$0. Who wins? If
But
you're
working
unemployed
14
versus employed.
Working 14 hours a day and getting paid only for $1. Instead, when the minimum wage was enacted, the employment, the hiring increased for 68%.
What did these
How
people
would
do?
you?
What was their main duties
Just
if they were paid
something,
$1?
just to add
What do you
something.
mean?
Because you cannot be paid $1 unless everyone in the market of the whole country pays you $1. If anyone pays you more than that, you're gonna quit that job and you're gonna go to the other job because they pay you more. The thing with the market is you're never gonna be paid. The market sets a wage. You're never gonna be paid below that, because the moment this firm pays you below that, you're gonna find the opportunity and jump to the other firm which pays you the equilibrium wage.
And what would be the problem if you have a minimum wage then?
The problem with the minimum wage.
Is first of all that you interfere in the market. So you're setting, businesses aren't voluntarily giving a wage to employees, but you're setting the way to businesses. So you're giving them a criteria. And when you give them the criteria, so businesses think in terms of profits. Now profits are revenues minus costs. If you are setting the cost, then actually you're increasing their cost. So they will have to adjust some way in order to have the same profits or higher profits in order to keep staying in the market.
Okay.
Yes,
Now,
Can we come
now
back?
getting more profit, you either lower the cost by lowering the quantity of the workers that you hire, or increasing the revenues by getting high skilled workers.
Okay,
Yes,
let me
if you're the owner
explain
of
with an
the
example.
If you're the
Visual.
owner of the company and you don't have, let's pretend that you don't have the law on the minimum wage, what would stop you to pay someone below what he or she deserves?
Here you go. Look at the perfect example. Not the perfect example, my example. I created this. So here's Farash. He's a cleaner. He is one of those people that has the lowest productivity. He has very little education. He's happy with his job because he can find a job. His marginal productivity is $3 to the company. He gets paid $3 because the market sets that $3 range. The other worker is Hashim. He is a manufacturing line worker. He has more experience, he's been in a job for a longer time, his productivity is higher. So of course, he gets paid more than the cleaner, but he still gets paid less. That right there is exploitation, because he's being paid less $1 than his marginal product. So the difference right there is the profit the company makes. The third one is Julia. She's a secretary. She has a degree, she can talk English, she can use Excel, whatever you want. She gets paid much more than the both of them. And even she gets paid less. This is a realistic example. People do not get paid their marginal productivity. But still, if you were to include an $8 minimum wage, here's what would happen. Julia would not be affected because she already gets paid more. Hashim gets paid $7. Now minimum wage gets introduced. He has to be paid $8. But his marginal productivity is also $8. So there's no incentive for this employer to kick Hashim out of his factory because it's marginal productivity equals marginal cost. But what happens to Farosh is that no one is going to be willing to pay him the actual $8. He does not contribute to the company $8. He is worthless to the company. That moment, he's going to get kicked out of the company. He's going to get fired. And if he goes, as I said in my opening statement, he starts to go to industries, everyone has $8 minimum wage, but no one is willing to hire him because of his productivity.
Yes, okay. What would swap you to pay Farosh $2, for
The
example?
market wage, the market that
You
you live
think
in.
that
He would
market-
move to
the
the
market,
market.
what does swap you
Unless
as?
there's a coalition between all the industries to
What
pay
would
$2,
stop you
he
as
will
the
go to
owner
the
of a
other.
company?
getting
Since you don't want
costly.
interference, that means that you will decide on the wage of your
It's getting
employee.
No, because I cannot decide the wage. The market decides
What
the
we're
wage.
saying is that if you have competition, the market will decide.
Yes.
And if you
Cannot
have
change
small
it
companies, you
below.
have competition because you don't have the bargaining power as a company to set the wages, because there will be other companies that will give higher wages at the deserved level. If you have a monopoly or a company with monopolistic power, let's say oligopoly, then they will be much stronger and they will have economies of scale. So, when we
They
set minimum wages, they will actually benefit from that because they will try to, they will adjust the wages in terms of the minimum wage. So they will try to focus on the minimum wage and they will actually decrease the cost. So, by your argument that by setting minimum wages, you're actually helping these people to gain more income, it's not correct. Because you're not
I
actually
didn't say to gain
helping.
more income.
Can I
Exactly.
can I say
Can we
something?
please
something
wrap
else?
it up because
No,
we
no, we
don't
can't
have.
wrap it up. You are saying that the market is someone that decides for your income.
Yeah,
Why do you
your
decide
wage, not.
your wage?
And with this
Here you have 500 and here you have 500.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because you deserve that because you are, you no, no, you deserve that because some to give up. You're a professor and you are, okay. Let me tell you how the health of these families in Kosovo do with 250.
I ka 8 vajza. Poras me djem nuk shëndron më dhobët me që I ka 6. Të gjithë 14 fëmijët janë të Bahri e Bajram Mustafës, të cilët jetojnë në Prishtinë që nga përfundimi I luftës. Ky çift bashkëshortor që janë me priardhje nga Potoku I Podujevës, pati edhe një fëmijë po që I ka vdekur. Lindja 15 fëmijëve nuk e kanë bërë pishman Bahriën.
Jo, nuk e do shumë. Se për kushte janë shumë, po kështë për të qesh numër.
Vajza 20 qare është fëmija më I madhe derisa më e vogla e familjes është 4 muajshe. Bahria 37 vjeçare tregon se gjithmonë ka dashur të ketë një familje të madhe. Për një gjë të tillë kishte menduar se mjaftojnë 8 fëmijë, por planifikimi I familjes nuk I doli siç e kishte menduar.
Stokut, po linë kom thonë. Așa cum se bolă spunem. Că lasă și așa domnul. Spune că nu e. Na, doctus.
Megjithatë jetesa me pak prej 250 eurosh të bashkëshortit të saj është shumë e vështirë. Kjo familje nuk ka as shtëpinë e vet. Nga 99-ta janë vendosur në shtëpinë e një Rome. Për këtë,
Okay, you're saying that you deserve 500
I'm not saying
$500.
that I deserve
The free market
$500.
decides that.
But I'm
But
not
he
saying that
with
it is
14
$500.
children, 14 children, he decide he only have 250 because
So what? He has 5 children, he can make
No, no.
100,000.
you had the opportunity to study in Harvard, but he had that opportunity.
Thank you
The
very much.
president had
We
one.
have to wrap it up.
Just a second. With the example of
We
art.
have
Just a sec, with the example of art.
need
When the market,
No, no, you can't decide. You are the market. The market decides. The government decides for you.
sorry everyone. It's on talk, Shimon talk, so because we have to ask. We have also the public who can ask questions. So please
I have three questions, one for Arina, one for Art, and also First of all, with the word Arina, he makes 250 euros, that is around 8 euros up to the minimum wage in Kosovo, so that is not a problem about the minimum wage. This is my question. This is not my question, but my statement. This is not a problem about the minimum wage, but it's a problem about social help and
Education.
other things. My second question to Art. As you saw, Hashim was exploited.
He works,
No,
Sorry,
it's
he
not
works
exploited.
two
You got a
jobs.
raise. You got a raise.
If the minimum wage was put into
Yes, he starts to get paid
For
from
the
it.
minimum.
But that,
so is that a point?
it's better, but you know how much the amount of those people is?
Before the minimum wage, he was exploited.
Yes,
After the minimum wage, he was paid fairly. So the minimum wage worked good for him.
yes.
And you're saying, no, it didn't work good.
You know how much, you know how many people are part of that
But
group?
it might
Very,
not have a
very,
effect.
very small. A very small portion, 10% of the people
No,
are
it
part of
might
that
not
group.
have
10%.
10%, I think the question is relatively
High law.
high.
Yeah.
My third question
If
for
relative
you-
to the low skilled
If you say
people,
1% or 2%, okay, but
relative to
That's
the
what
low
says
skilled
I-
people, no.
Can I make my third question back in a survey in 2014 showed that 61% of small businesses in US agreed to increase the minimum wage to $10 in 2 years' time. How do you explain this? Because your main argument was that they don't want to increase the minimum wage. Yes, I'm saying the survey showed that
They
they want to
haven't,
have
they actually.
What
They
kind
want
of
to increase.
businesses?
small businesses.
But what kind of?
Or
Small
small businesses. Restaurants,
Just shops.
yeah.
shops.
This is in the private sector.
Yes.
One reason that I'm thinking of, even though I still believe that this is, I mean, this doesn't go to the benefit of the small businesses, is because, as I mentioned, they could adjust the other wages to the minimum wage. So they can put workers towards the minimum wage and actually give all their workers the minimum wage value. Not higher value, but just the minimum wage.
Yes, but they are actually willing to pay them more than they are paying them today, so
But
this
not,
contradicts your argument.
that's what I'm saying, not more, because they are paying more to the minimum, to the lowest wage workers, but the ones that are paid higher than the minimum wage, they will transfer to the minimum wage, so lower wages.
Still doesn't.
I have a question for Art. The example that you took, the first person, Farosh, you said that he would be fired if a minimum wage,
Introduce this.
yeah, but are you saying that in places where there are minimum wages, there aren't any cleaning persons because they don't get small
It
wages?
doesn't have to be a cleaning person.
Or it doesn't have to anyone
the
that
idea is
has the...
everyone who has a productivity lower than that, unless they can push for a higher productivity than the minimum wage, yes, the employer's, the rational decision for a profit maximizing agent is to avoid those additional costs. And yes, they will probably fire them, most likely.
So how can they function without cleaning?
Cleaning, yes.
They would replace them with machines.
You don't need.
How can you remove macchina a tagliere, cleaning machines? You have to push them
In the 1980s, there were,
and
we've studied
this
this,
is the case.
we've studied this way ago. In the 1980s,
Just one person.
I have a question for Katrina. She said it would be better if the market decides you, because
the more that
CEOs
the
know
government-
better how to. But would this not be dangerous if you leave all these decisions to the CEO? Because maybe they will say, oh, we want you to work for 14 hours. Why should somebody interfere, the government? We can do it better, let us make the decision.
But
So this minimum wage is set up as a minimum standard, like 8 hours is a standard, minimum wage is a standard. If you say don't interfere, where would this lead them?
But you're setting standards on the cost of the,
But also safety standards are on the cost of businesses.
still, I think that, as I mentioned, this is decided by the market. So if you have competition, then as a CEO, of course that you would adjust to the other people's and the employees, and maybe
We have
that
50% unemployment, where's the bargaining power in it?
And
So there are no laws you can decide on whatever wage you want for your
Then another question. Last one.
Short one.
Yeah, short one. Both sides approach this debate like either or, either minimum wage or no minimum wage. Don't you think that the level of the minimum wage is more?
Can I add to that? Can I add? There is an alternative.
Yeah,
I've done my
I have a
research.
follow-up question, but not done yet. Would you guys, against minimum wage side, be willing to concede that a minimum wage that is low enough won't have the harmful effect that you said it would, and would the other team accept that the minimum wage that is too high would not have the positive effects that you said? This would make the level important, not either or.
Okay, very quickly. Right now, even right now in the United States, 1825, the minimum wage is
You
very
have
low.
federal and then you have
State
the state level. So
The minimum wage on average is relatively low. The impact is small. Research shows both sides that it's very small. People, however, when you look, there's also the moral. You always have to consider the moral perspective. You're getting people out of jobs. And even if it's a small portion, that portion that is out of the job has to be considered, always. For those people, it's a lot. Even though it's small for others, for those it's a lot. The second one is finding a medium. Donald Trump actually has proposed this, and it's one of the statements that I don't know why I agree about the minimum wages. He said, no. He said that setting a minimum wage for different job occupations would be more appropriate than setting a minimum wage for everyone. So, for example, different minimum wages probably for different people would be more satisfying than setting a minimum wage for everyone, treating everyone as if they have the same salary.
Doesn't answer my question.
Thank you very much.